An unnoticed news story. On December 22, American President Donald Trump was evacuated to a bunker at his Mar-a-Lago residence, all because a state of emergency was declared. At the very moment when the fate of peace talks on Ukraine was being decided in Florida, the airspace above the United States president was breached. North American Aerospace Defense Command scrambled F-16 fighters and Canadian Forces 18S to intercept an unidentified aircraft that entered the restricted zone. The Secret Service immediately evacuated Donald Trump to a special bunker. There are contrails in the sky, clear panic on the ground, and conspiracy theories are appearing on social media. And then it all started. On social media, people began asking questions. What is this? Is it an assassination attempt? Is it a warning from the Kremlin? Or is it just the stupidity of some amateur pilot who accidentally flew into Mar-a-Lago's territory? And that's why it wasn't really necessary to scramble fighter jets. Today, we'll break down this incident second by second. My name is Alexei Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, give it a like, and leave any comment under this video. This really helps a lot in promoting the episodes on YouTube, and subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pichi News. The link is in this video's description. There we post breaking news as it comes in. So let's reconstruct the chronology of events reported by the media. On December 22 around 11 a.m. local time, civilian aviation radars and military surveillance systems detected an unidentified aircraft heading straight for Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. Let me remind you that when the President of the United States is in Florida, a temporary flight restriction is imposed over that area. It's like an invisible dome with a radius of about 30 miles where not even a mosquito can enter without special permission. Well, not to mention an airplane, but some unidentified aircraft still entered this zone, and not only did it enter, it also stopped responding to the controller's requests. In other words, it just turned off its radio, and that was it. What kind of plane is that? At that moment, in the North American Aerospace Defense Command Center, that's the North American Aerospace Defense Command, the red alert, of course, was triggered. Following protocol, standby fighter jets were quickly scrambled to intercept. American F-16s immediately took to the air, and interestingly, so did Canadian Forces, 18S, which were patrolling this sector as part of the Joint Air Defense System. To reach the target in time, the pilots were given the order booster, that is, to fly at maximum speed. And then panic broke out in Florida because when the fighters went supersonic, there was a loud boom. On social media, people began saying, this is almost like a bombing raid. This is what's happening over Donald Trump's residence. Obviously, Trump had reasons to be nervous. In Miami, negotiations with the Russians had just taken place nearby, and they didn't end with the Russians getting everything they wanted in the Caribbean Sea, right? The United States Navy is blockading Venezuela, and Israel warns Iran may be planning a missile attack under the pretense of suffering. And then an unknown plane is flying straight toward Trump's residence. The United States Secret Service acted according to protocol. Trump was taken to a secure room on the rooftops. Reportedly, portable Stinger anti-aircraft systems were deployed at Mar-a-Lago. Yes, the very same ones used by the armed forces of Ukraine. The atmosphere was so tense that any wrong move in the intruding plane would have been shot down. But what caused this incident? It wasn't just a pilot's mistake. In geopolitics, coincidences rarely happen or are unwelcome. Let's consider the context. We discussed in previous episodes that the negotiations in Miami were tough, the negotiations about Russia's war against Ukraine. Jurist Dr. Vance calls it a breakthrough, but it's actually a deadlock in negotiations. Russia wants Donbass, while Trump is focused on an operation near Venezuela. And right at this moment, the security system of the United States president is being put to the test. And now Columbia Broadcasting System News writes that flying into a no-fly zone is a classic way to test the reaction time of air defense. Who could have done this? Asked Columbia Broadcasting System News. Version 1. An idiot in the sky. Most often, these are private pilots in small Cessnas who forgot to turn on the radio or didn't check the map. Version 2. It's a provocation. Remember when Chinese balloons flew over America? So, sending a plane into a temporary flight restriction zone is a way to show Trump that he's supposedly not safe. Like, you're not even safe in your own residence. Considering all the provocations with drones and planes in Europe, conspiracy theorists are already coming up with theories that this could be a message from the offended dictators Vladimir Putin and Nicolas Maduro, whom Trump is currently trying to squeeze. At the same time, the scariest part of this whole story is the interception procedure itself. How does it work? The fighter jet nears the intruder, and the F-16 pilot rocks his wings, signaling to follow. If the intruder ignores warnings, the military aircraft fires flares in front of the civilian plane's nose. This is the final warning. The next step is to open fire to destroy. On December 22, the F-16s intercepted, and all ended well. As a result, North American Aerospace Defense Command writes the following quote, "This morning, North American Aerospace Defense Command F-16 fighter jets intercepted an aircraft that entered the restricted airspace over Palm Beach. The situation was successfully resolved. Before every flight, check and monitor the current flight zones." And this last request tells us that most likely it was a civilian plane. Nevertheless, this incident hit Donald Trump's most vulnerable spot, his sense of security. And we remember 2024, the assassination attempt in Butler, when the bullet grazed his ear, and we remember the attempted attack at the golf club. And Trump knows that Iran, lone radicals, and so on are after him, and now Trump will become, even more paranoid and tough. Insiders are already drafting the policy, which is interesting. Trump is furious. He's demanding answers. How could the aircraft get so close unnoticed? And here's an interesting point. If it turns out that foreign intelligence agencies are even indirectly behind this flyover, or if this incident is used as a reason to think so, Washington's reaction will be disproportionate, and Trump will then have his hands untied to act as he sees fit. By the way, regarding Canada, there's another interesting detail many people missed. Canadian forces 18S from Canada participated in the interception. This is a reminder that the United States and Canada defense system, that very North American Aerospace Defense Command, is unified. Trudeau, the Prime Minister with whom Trump has a complicated relationship, immediately made a statement about partnership. And, it's such an interesting irony of fate. I mean, Trump threatened to annex Canada, Trump is waging a trade war against it, but when it comes to Donald Trump's own security, it's Canadian fighter jets that cover him. How did this whole incident end? Fortunately, preliminary reports say the intruding plane was only a private aircraft and was forced to land at the nearest airfield. The pilot is being interrogated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and most likely, it's just negligence. But nevertheless, this may show that such incidents can be used to frighten America, just like Russia is frightening Europe with its drones and planes. I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. Friends, if you found this episode interesting or useful, you can support the work of this YouTube channel with your donation or a paid subscription using the links and details provided. The video description clearly states, support the Alexei Pechi channel. Use any format you prefer. I appreciate any support. That's all for now. Take care and goodbye everyone.